Marissa,
Ken.
the time has come for quarter one to come to an end.
Yeah.
There's a week left, and then after that, Q2 starts. So we have our infamous quarterly preview that we're going to talk about. We're going to actually go through your ideal quarterly preview, but also just a realistic way.
Yeah.
If you're too busy, you can't get it done, and then actually guide you through a quarterly preview. So stay tuned. It's going to be a fun episode.
It's going to be great. I'm excited. Welcome to another episode of Focus on This, the most productive podcast on the internet so you can banish distractions, get the right stuff done, and finally start loving Mondays. I'm Marissa Hyatt here with Ken Freire. Happy Monday.
Hey, happy Monday. And we also have someone else in the room.
Nick.
What's up, Nick? So,
hi.
It's a full house.
It's a full house. If you guys are watching it on video or YouTube or anything like that, you will notice that Nick is in the room. He normally is not.
Yes, I'm still in the most unflattering position I could possibly be in, and stayed at my uncle's house I just saw my hair and I went, oh my God, what is happening? So everybody just pretend I'm not here. Picture
What
me.
is your uncle's name?
Michael.
Oh, it's disappointing.
Hyatt.
Wow.
I needed like a Uncle Terry or something.
And so today we are talking about a quarterly preview.
Yeah, it's that time.
It's that time where Q1 is wrapping up, and it happened just like that.
Yeah.
If you guys listened to last week's episode, we talked about just bailing on your goals and not hitting your goals, right? And today, now we're gonna hopefully look a little bit more in the past, but then to the future of like, how do we keep moving forward? How do we actually have a successful quarterly preview?
Yes.
So Marissa, walk us through just like the ideal stage of how to do a quarterly preview.
So first of all, a quarterly preview, for those of you who may have never done this before, this is a process that we have in our full focus planner that walks you through taking kind of inventory of the past 3 months, what worked, what didn't work, and then moving into the future for the next quarter, what you want to accomplish. So you're reviewing your goals, your rituals, ideal week, all that kind of stuff. And then you're setting yourself up for success for the next quarter. So you're starting your new planner and all of that. Typically, in an ideal world, you dedicate like half a day to this process. And I've certainly done this at different times in my life where it's like, cool, I've got the whole morning or the whole afternoon. And you usually want it in a very quiet place so you can really like dig deep. Sometimes I'll like review my journal to really jog my memory of like, what did I do this last quarter? How did things go? What was the process? Sometimes people will even go away. They'll like make a whole weekend trip out of this, or they'll take their planners to the coffee shop and do it at a coffee shop. So there's all different kinds of ways to do this. And that's all great. Like if you can do that, if you can take a full half day, if you can get away from your kids or whoever that might be pulling at you and, distracting you, amazing. Like I know that my sister Megan, she will often block a full day on her work calendar to do her quarterly preview. And she does it in the middle of the week and will come to the office and do it in that way, which is fantastic. But that often is not realistic for most of us.
Yeah.
And so what we want to talk about is how can you actually do this in the busyness of life?
Yeah.
So how do you do this?
Yeah. So one of the ways that I have found is just break it out into multiple days. You know, so if you look at the quarterly preview, there's several different things you do in several stages where I start to like just say, you know what, it's going to take me 5 days, right? I'm going to take an hour here or 30 minutes here each night. And if anything, try to do it consistently within 1 week.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to do it in 3 weeks, man. That might take too long. But within a week, just say, hey, I'm going to block off 30 minutes a day to do this section of the quarterly preview.
Yeah.
I have found that has been helpful, especially in the season of my life. For those of you who are listening, I have 4 little kids at home and an amazing, beautiful
wife.
Yeah,
quiet situation is not happening.
If it's quiet, it's because we're sleeping.
Right.
Until someone decides to wake us up, right? So I have just found that to be extremely helpful. I also know that some people will just do a short and quiet quarterly preview. So if you can't do 4 hours, or half a day,
I've totally
do it in 2
done
hours.
This. Yeah.
Right. So how do people, Marissa, if you know, like, how do people shorten it? Like, what are some practical tips if they're like, I'm too busy, I can't make it happen?
Yeah.
How do we shorten it?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I feel like there's parts of the quarterly preview that are must do's.
Yeah.
And then there's other parts that in a pinch, I mean, I think they're still really important, but in a pinch, you could not do or just kind of like bring over from the previous quarter. So this is kind of how I've in the past shortened it, is I've taken things like my ideal week or my morning ritual, and rather than like do a deep dive and try to figure out like what is coming up in this quarter and what is really like what's going to be the most perfect situation for me, I'll just bring those over, or I'll revisit those later on in the quarter. Like if I can't do it while doing my quarterly preview, I might do it 3 weeks from now. Yeah. And I'll go, okay, now I can actually have the space to, deep dive into my ideal calendar or my ideal week and determine if it's doable, at this time in my life. So that's a big way that I've cut down, because I feel like those two processes take a long time, because you're having to look at your calendar coming up, like especially for your ideal week. If you do that right, it can really, really serve you. And we have other episodes on the show about the ideal week and why it's so powerful. But if it's not something that you feel like you can take on right now, just skip it. Just either copy it from last quarter or just skip it entirely. It's not going to make or break your experience.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing, I actually learned this from a certified pro. So for those of you listening, we have these full focus certified pros who are experts at our tools and frameworks that you could go check out and get coached by them.
They're like coaches. Yeah.
You can get coached by them. One of them actually said the way they shorten their quarterly preview, a lot of it is reviewing the past, especially your big wins.
Right.
Well, what they started doing is at the end of your day, there's a daily win, they'd write it there, but they'd also write it on a separate piece of paper.
Oh.
So they have everything down on one document, so that when they go to do their quarterly preview, they're looking at that document versus just like flipping through several pages.
That's super smart.
Right? So it's an efficiency thing, right?
Yeah.
But then in one page or a few pages, you're seeing all your wins. You're like,
That's
wow,
really cool.
I actually did a lot.
And you could easily do that. Like we have separate notes pages at the end of your planner, and you could easily do that at the back of your planner. Just copy it there. The other thing as you're talking that I thought would be helpful, because you're right, like some of the most cumbersome part of this process is going back and being like, what was I doing 3 months ago? Like what was a win then? Or what did I accomplish? And so what you could do is keep a separate page where you're just essentially like keeping a list of noteworthy things that happened throughout the quarter, like good or bad, but just things that happened or things that worked well or didn't work well. So maybe while you're doing your weekly previews and you're kind of asking these similar questions on a shorter basis, on a weekly basis, just copy those to the back. And then you've got it all. Basically, you've got a jump start on your quarterly preview.
Which really does take quite a bit of time. If you think about every single page and you're like, oh, where's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Like you're just flipping. It saves a ton of time.
I like that. I might try that this quarter, because I feel like that is always the hardest thing for me, is to go back and ask myself, what did I even do this quarter?
Yeah.
Guys, before we move on, I have to tell you about the time that I was an adult, and I was
so like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, for like an hour. And I went, I'm going to do a quarterly preview. I'm going to set aside time on my calendar. I'm going to go to a Starbucks, and I'm going to spend 3-4 hours, get my whatever, do my thing. So I get to the Starbucks, and I've told parts of the story on the podcast before. You guys don't know the story.
Yeah, I've never heard
so if you know the story, at least you get to see what happens as I say this. I'm like, okay, I got my thing, my old planner. Everything's laid out on the table. I got all these pencils. I love pencils. I got my sharpener. I'm fully set. I've got some like music. I'm ready. And then behind me at the Starbucks, there's this like man just sitting by himself at a table, just like hanging. And I'm like, oh, it's like waiting for somebody, whatever. Because you have to be aware of who's near you. Like, oh, okay, so what's okay, fine. Guy's here, whatever. 5-10 minutes into this, a woman shows up and they're like talking very softly. Like they're like, it isn't like, oh, hey, like,
how's it going?
It was very like,
what's happening?
It's just like really intense sort of talking like this. And now I'm like, what is happening behind me? What's happening?
You're like scooting your chair.
So I'm like, okay. So long story short, as I'm sitting there trying to really process what I've accomplished and what I want to do, they're like a married couple with children breaking up.
Oh no.
They were meeting in that sort of like, we'll meet at Starbucks to like talk about whatever. Like
this story has turned very sad.
They like things were, and like the amount of detail that I received
oh my god,
as to what led to this thing was, so I'm like, just like, hey, I'm just trying to like have a good time. And meanwhile, like their like real trauma is happening behind me. At some point, somebody left and like paced around outside.
Oh my god!
And then came back in, and I'm like texting my wife. I'm like, I don't. Things are dark over here. Things are very dark. I'm just trying to.
It's like an episode of Scandal. All of a
So
sudden you're like,
so the point of the story is to go. Maybe don't go to a Starbucks, or have noise canceling headphones or whatever. But it really,
you might find yourself in the middle of someone else's.
It was, guys, and then I'm a bad person.
Why?
Because I'm like.
You're totally in it.
I was
like,
in
listen,
this.
Well, that's just being a human.
I have to tell you the amount of like detail that I like ascertained about like who they were. I actually got all the way down to I know their names because they left
on a deep dive.
They like left. There was like things they were saying about like what they did for a living and blah blah blah. And I really was like, Ashley, I found this newspaper article about that. So that's it. You know, I'm a bad person. I know. I know.
I would not be. I would not say that you're a bad person. I would say that
I'm supposed.
This
is like This is like a big deal, and I was just like, what can I? This is very me.
I think this is on them.
What can I figure out about this?
Yeah. This is on them for having this conversation in a public place.
I
mean,
guess,
I
but they guess they didn't want to go.
I was going to say I understand why they did.
Yes.
Because whoever the party was, one of them was probably nervous about having that conversation, and so they said we need to do this in public
because we'll be
so
nice.
It doesn't turn
bad.
bad.
It doesn't.
And it did.
And it still did.
It turned bad. Oh. So anyway,
were you able to step in and mediate?
Do we need to shout them out?
No.
Jerry and Martha, our thoughts are with you. We hope you're.
I should have turned around. I should have turned around and been like, "Have you done your quarterly preview?"
Yeah,
have you done your quarterly preview?
This could have saved your marriage.
You would have been able to schedule things, make more time for each other. Anyway, so
it sounds like you needed several habit goals.
But the takeaway here is that even your best laid plans can go awry.
Yes,
but with the quarterly preview you're about to guide them through.
And some noise canceling headphones.
You'll be sure to have some success.
The world is your oyster.
This is why I don't do deep work in a coffee shop. Just FYI, or anywhere like that.
I love people watching too much.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm like
what? So these people are on a first date. Oh, they're getting divorced.
Oh yes.
Okay.
The first dates are the best ones. Yeah. You're like, this is a first date.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're trying like way too hard.
All right, so why don't we walk through a quarterly preview? And so if you are brand new to the Full Focus Planner, you've never done a quarterly preview, you can just grab a notebook right now. You don't even have to have our planner yet, although we highly recommend that you get it. If you do, then, this is a great refresher for you, and you can take this with you and do this. We actually do have a formal, guided quarterly preview if you do want to, walk through this with some help. And I believe that is at fullfocus.co/guided quarterly preview. You can get a free download of our guided quarterly preview.
Oh, there you go.
So it's pretty great.
Is it a PDF or video?
It's an audio file with music. It's a very soothing experience.
It's kind of like a guided meditation, but not.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really fantastic.
Yeah.
Shout out to Blake. Thanks for recording that for us. Okay, so first thing that you're going to do in your quarterly preview, just like your weekly preview, is, like you were talking about, Ken, is to recognize your wins.
Yeah.
And this is really important for especially those of us who have a tendency to kind of gloss over that and just get to the next thing. It's important. You're shaking your head, but we know you do it.
Oh, I do it all the time.
For sure. But this is important to actually realize, what were some of the wins that you had this quarter? Yeah. I think especially if it's been a busy season or a difficult, challenging season, it's easy to think nothing great happened.
Yeah.
And the truth is tons of amazing things happened, and it's important to just take a minute to think through. So just even if you're driving right now, just take a minute and just ask yourself, what happened in the last 3 months that I'm proud of, that I enjoyed, that connected me to people that I was able to accomplish?
Yeah. I would just like to emphasize that, because I know for me, I can be a critical person. So I'm always looking at the negative. What's the problem? What's the thing? I don't ever look at the wins. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't care about the wins. I did it. Move on.
Yeah.
But just recently, the other day, my wife just created a 2023 photo book. So she's been doing this since we've been married, 2017. So we have all these photo books, right? And I sat down next with my son. We're just sitting there getting ready for dinner. And I'm like looking through 2023 and all the stuff we've done and all the memories that we created. And I'm like tearing up because in my mind, I remember 2023 just being so hard because like we just moved to Nashville, started a new job. Job was like, there was a lot happening here. Then we got pregnant with our fourth kid and they're all great things. But like, I just remember the chaos.
Yeah, it was a blur.
Right? It was a blur. But then when I see these snapshots and these pictures, I was like, oh, we did this and we did this. And we went to the aquarium. We went to St. Louis to the zoo, like all this fun stuff that I was just like, man, that we had a really busy and full year. It was a good year.
Yes.
That would have been missed if I didn't have that photo book.
Well, and I think you can translate this when you're doing your quarterly preview. Go back. I do this actually every single time as I will take out my phone and go back through my photos for the last 3 months because it is helpful. There's certain things that I didn't journal about, certain things that I may not have written in my planner, but I may have taken a photo of it. And so that's a great way to kind of jog your memory and get those like happy chemicals going in your brain of like, oh yeah, like this was, even in the midst of all the craziness, it was a great quarter.
Yeah.
So look through your photos for sure.
That's a great tip.
That's a great tip.
That's a great tip. All right. So that's the first thing that you do. You just list 3 to 5 of your top wins.
Yes.
Right. Then the second thing is refer to your goals from the last quarter.
Right.
If you did it, right, look at them and just say, how well did you complete them? Right. Some of them you might have gotten 50%, 70%, 100%, or 10%. Right. I think the biggest thing there is just celebrate what you did do.
Yeah. Give yourself partial credit.
Yeah. Some people might be like me, I'm just using myself. If I don't do 100, I'm like, well, totally. I'm a loser. I'm like, I'm stupid. I suck. Right. And it's just like,
and if you have failed on your goals, go listen to last week's episode because we talked all about this. And even if you only completed one day or a week, you did complete something. So give yourself that credit.
So, and that's huge. And that's for me, like recovering perfectionist. I got to stop catastrophizing and personalizing. I'm like, okay, I did something. Let's keep moving forward. The goal is that I'm moving forward, not that I'm just going to self-loathe.
Well, and I think this is a great place to not like suspend all kind of judgment on yourself in this moment. Like you're just stating the facts. So you're not saying that you completely failed. Maybe you got 15% of the way there. Well, that's just a fact. Like just take out the emotion for now and just state what happened. And then the next thing that you do get to do is ask what worked and what didn't and why. So now you can really start diving into this. So maybe those goals that you struggled with to complete, what happened? Like what didn't work and what went wrong with those? You know, like did life just get crazy and it derailed you? Did you struggle to get into a habit? You didn't have enough support systems in place? What happened that, or you didn't have the right creative thinking about something or whatever it was, like what happened, what went wrong, what went right? And then especially for the ones that did go right, what did you do that worked so well? Like, I think that that's an easy thing to overlook. It's like, well, I accomplished that goal next, but it's like, well, why? Like that there are, like nuggets throughout that of clues of here's your recipe for success. You know, like I know when I've been the most successful in some of my goals, it's because I had a really great support and accountability system in place. Like that I know is really key for me when I'm trying to accomplish a goal is if I don't have that, my chances of success are slim to none. So digest and reflect on what worked and what didn't and why.
And the huge thing about that is that if you know what worked, you could just keep doing that, right? Like you might have built a habit. It's your recipe, right? And then what didn't, I have found that oftentimes when you look at what didn't work, it might have been circumstantial or it might have just been like you missed one small thing that if you add it to you or just shift something, it changes the game and you could do it. So it's not a total loss. So after you do what worked, what didn't, and why, the next two questions you're going to answer is what will you continue and what will you change? Now, the reason why you're going to ask these two questions is because the first part of the question is what worked and what didn't. But now it's like, do you still want to continue doing those things or do you need to start changing some things, right? Because some things that you might have added, like you're like, this worked. That worked for that particular situation or that goal, but not for the next thing that you're going to do.
Or you might have a busy season coming up. And let's say the first quarter was kind of chill and, you know, you weren't traveling a bunch, but in Q2, you're going to be taking some family trips or, I don't know, you've got work stuff going on, taking off, you know, Q2 to me seems to be a little more busy.
Yeah.
Q3, well, it's like kind of like partial. It's like the first couple months are busier, I feel like. But for a lot of people, they have kids graduating and, you know, it's school's ending and all kinds of stuff. And then it's like, okay, now we're in June. And is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
How is that even happening?
know.
That is crazy.
That's
Okay,
it's gonna
I'm
be.
sorry. That
It's
just
gonna
like
be
hit
there so
me like a ton
You're
of
like, oh my
bricks.
gosh, I'm in June.
Wait, summer's happening, guys. Wake up call. Yeah, but it's, you know, it might be crazy and busy. And so you might need to ask yourself, well, what do I really want to continue doing this quarter?
Yeah.
Because it looks really different than last quarter looks.
Yeah. And even if you go to the next question, what will you change, right? For those of you who have kids in high school or like a senior in high school and they're going to graduate, like that's the last like time that you might have with them before they go off to college.
Right.
And I know that's hard like to think about. And you're like, whoa, I don't want to go to June yet. We're still here in March, right? But that's something I know many of parents are already thinking that, but like, what will you need to change so that you can make sure those last 3 months that you have with your child is so fruitful and so beautiful for them? It's like their last hurrah, right?
It's a big deal.
So you want to be thinking about those things as we go through, as you go through your quarterly preview.
Yes. So next thing that you want to do is look at your goals and also look at your life plan if you do have one. So just a quick note, I believe it's next week, we will be doing our first ever Life Focus retreat. So if you don't have a life plan and you're looking at this part of your quarterly preview going, well, I don't have that, so I'm just going to skip it or whatever, I still want to encourage you to come to that event. It's going to be phenomenal. Ken and I are going to be hosting it, so it's going to be super fun. Megan, my sister, and my dad, Michael Hyatt, they're going to be the ones teaching the content. It's going to be a full retreat experience. This is all online and virtual. But this is a great time for you to take some time out of your normal life and actually do a deep dive of like searching your heart, asking yourself the questions, what do I really want? And I totally like, trust me on this one, that if you do this, your next quarter will be so much more fruitful because you will have so much more clarity about who you are, what you're here to do, and what you actually want in your life. And so my encouragement to you is don't just let this next quarter be a repeat of Q1. If your Q1 was anything like my Q1, don't let it be a repeat. And I would love to see you at our Life Focus retreat. So you can just go to fullfocus.co/retreat and we will see you there.
It's going to be phenomenal.
So review your goals, review your life plan, kind of get back in touch with those, decide if there's anything you want to change. We have some great episodes and blog posts on this. But if you are struggling to figure out, like, do these goals still apply to me or not? Or what do I want to accomplish this next quarter? There's like 4 R's that you can do. Basically, review, reevaluate, what are they?
Arithmetic.
It's not.
No, review.
Okay, so the 4 R's, as we just found out, this just in.
No, this was a seamless take.
This is
That
complete
hard
seamless.
edit that just happened was like a tech issue.
Yeah, tech issue.
Yeah, we had a weird glitch. Recommit. So if your goal is something that you still want to do, this is a great time to recommit to it. Number 2 is to revise. So you might want to tweak it a little bit. It might not resonate quite as much, but you just need to revise. Maybe the date that you're starting or the date that you want to accomplish it by.
Or the strategy that you're using.
Strategy. Yep, exactly. And then 3rd is to replace. So it might be like, I don't really want this goal, but I want a different goal. And so you want to completely, replace that goal. And then lastly is remove. So maybe you had 3 goals that you were planning to do for Q2. And one of those 3, you're like, this just isn't hitting the spot and I don't have capacity to replace it. Just take it off. Like, no shame, no guilt, nothing. Just remove the goal. What is our next thing?
Yeah, once you do that, you fill in the calendar pages of your quarterly preview, right? Just see what needs to be filled in those 3 months, like any major things. Again, graduations might be coming up, holidays coming up, work retreats, whatever it is, you want to fill those in.
Yes. Definitely review, your Google Calendar or whatever you use, your family calendar, all that, take it into account. Okay, and then one of the last things that you will do is to revise your daily rituals and ideal week. So this was something that we talked about. If you are short on time, you might want to skip this for now, but these are really going to help you help set yourself up to actually accomplish those goals. So maybe you have some habit goals. Well, put it into your daily rituals. Or if you've got an ideal week, you can like block off time to actually accomplish your goals. Don't just block off time for, the typical stuff, but just, think through this through the lens of your goals.
Yeah. So, and if you look at this, right, you might be like, okay, well, how many days will it take? Well, it depends on you, how quickly this might. If you have like your daily wins in one page, that might take you 30 minutes, right? So just enjoy it and celebrate. So you do that one day. Then the second day, you are going to start to ask all the other questions, like what worked, what didn't, what will you change? That's day 2. Day 3, you start to review your goals for next year, right? And then day 4, you might you do just daily rituals, right? And then day 5 is your ideal week, right? Like that's how you just start breaking it up, because you might not have all the time in the world.
Totally. Another quick hack too is if you do have a life plan, or if you're about to come to the Life Focus Retreat to create your life plan, one of the things that you could do is record your life plan, like use your voice memos on your phone, or there's a Think Up app is another one that you could use to record it. And then that way you can kind of like listen to that on your commute into work, or when you're out walking or whatever, to cut down on the time of like, I've got to block off time on my calendar. You can kind of listen to that. Does this resonate still? Is there anything I need to change?
Yeah, that's great.
And then lastly, you just set up your full focus planner for the next quarter. So you're going to go through, you're going to add your dates in. I always love this part. We get like, some people hate it in the community and they're like, why don't you make a dated planner? To me, I like it because it reminds me like our days are numbered. And this is a kind of a sacred thing to me that I get to like chart out the next 3 months and think through where am I going to be in a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So
how many days do you fill out?
I do the whole quarter.
You do the whole quarter. I know it recommends at least 2 weeks, I think, at some point.
I do the whole quarter. Well, I should say I normally do. This last quarter I didn't. So
See?
Explains a lot. It explains a lot. So trust me on this one.
That's a habit you want to keep.
Go put the dates on your planner now.
And just a reminder, if you're listening to this episode, right, and you haven't bought your planner yet for the next quarter, do it now.
Now is the time.
Right.
We actually have a ton of our favorite, like crowd favorite colors back in stock just in time for the new quarter. We have an amazing bundle subscription where if you want to mix and match which planners you want to use throughout the year, you can save 15% versus just buying one at a time. And that's, to me, the best deal that we have. So definitely go fullfocusplanner.com. Get your next planner.
Let's do it.
Here's to a fantastic second quarter, which I, frankly, am excited for. I love a fresh start. Thanks for joining us on Focus on This.
This is the most productive podcast on the internet. So please share it with your friends and be sure to join the Full Focus Planner community on Facebook so you can benefit from the creativity and encouragement of people chasing big goals just like you.
And we will be here next week with another great episode.
Minnesota. Episode. There you go.
And we'll be here next week with another great episode.
Let's all stay.
Yeah, I'm sure. I assumed as much.
Until then, stay focused.